So there's no denying that in the world of video games, there are quite a lot of appealing characters who are quite attractive, but the attention usually goes to the female characters. And that's cool and all, but as a gay dude myself, I want to give some attention to some of the male characters. In this video, I'm gonna be sharing a few male video game characters who I think are really attractive, hot, and or appealing. My choices are gonna be based off of the character's looks and or personality. So, with the risk of sounding like a total weirdo, let's get into some male video game characters who I think are pretty attractive. Let's begin. Oh dear, why do some bad guys gotta look so downright sexy? Antsem, Seeker of Darkness, easily fits the phrase of tall, dark, and handsome. I've gotta admit that even back when I first saw Antsem in the first Kingdom Hearts game as a kid, I was instantly drawn to him, and I just thought that he looked really attractive. I mean, that deep, sensual voice, his long silver hair, that rich mocha skin tone, and his piercing orange eyes that looked directly into your soul. He was just so dreamy to me. But what made things even more alluring about him for me was that they low-key sexualized him in the final fight where he becomes part of the world of chaos and removes his jacket and is wearing nothing but a pair of skin-tight leather pants and completely showing off that sexy bod of his. I mean, those arms, that chest, just woof. I mean, yeah, he was pretty crazy and tried to submerge the whole world into darkness, but with a devilishly handsome look like his, I mean, I wouldn't say no to that. And yeah, I know that sounded pretty weird, but I'm a dork. I will say that Xehanort's Nobody Xemnas is just as appealing in the looks department, but there was just something about his heartless form that really clicked for me, what with his tall, dark, and handsome aesthetic. All I can say is I wouldn't mind submerging into darkness if it meant I could spend it with him in his soft, warm embrace. Dimitri from the Darkstalkers franchise is probably one of the hottest male vampires I have ever seen in a video game. At least physically anyway. His character sprite is probably the sexiest 2D sprite I have ever seen in a 2D styled game. His body is just so beefy. Those big bulging biceps, his big bulging chest, and he doesn't skip leg day. I'm in heaven. Couple all that with his gothic macabre sense of style, and he's pretty much a total dreamboat in my opinion. The only problem is, he's pretty evil. Well, I mean, he's not completely evil, but he's not completely good either. Though to be honest, I wouldn't mind being his loving servant and giving him all kinds of sweet and loving affection. I wouldn't even need to be under his hypnotic spell. All jokes aside, I've always had a little crush on this hunky vampire, and combining his beefcake stature and gothic macabre style, he was more than guaranteed a spot on this list. Initially, I didn't really think much about Ike when I first saw him in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I mean, sure, he was pretty fun to play as, and he was kinda cute, but he didn't really grab me in that way. That is, until he came back in Super Smash Bros. Wii U, and oh my goodness, he was absolutely sexy. What can I say? I'm a sucker for a beefcake with a heart of gold, and I just couldn't help but find his new design to be really attractive in this game. I'll admit that I haven't really played the Fire Emblem games because I'm really not into RPGs all that much, but from what I've read about him being a kind, courageous, and headstrong type of person, that definitely added more to my attraction to him, because while I already found him to be a handsome guy, the nice personality only made him all the more alluring to me. Really, there's not much else I can say about him other than I just find him to be a really attractive character. It's funny how a character who started out as a very simplistic 2D sprite can turn into such a studly character. Ryu Hayabusa is a good example of this, and he transitioned beautifully into the next generation, from his humble NES days. The way he was rendered on the original Xbox back in the day was just so freaking sexy, with those striking eyes in the CGI cutscenes, and that body. It was cool that Team Ninja had him be a recurring main character in the Dead or Alive games, because it meant that we got to see more of him, and not to mention the fan service. Admittedly, his personality is not the most engaging, as he tends to be very serious and kind of stiff, but he is wise beyond his years, has a sense of justice, and outside of battle, he's very kind, and that's pretty attractive to me. But yeah, Ryu is a total hottie, and I just had to include him on this list. When it came to Resident Evil's prominent men, I honestly didn't really find the guys all that appealing. I mean, sure, Leon was cute, and he was especially handsome in Resident Evil 4 and onwards, but still, I just wasn't completely enamored by him, and I never really was into Wesker either. But then Resident Evil 5 came out, and we got to see an older Chris Redfield, and oh my goodness, just wow. Now in the earlier Resident Evil games, Chris was pretty cute, and I liked his caring nature, but when he came back in Resident Evil 5 after a bit of a hiatus, he turned into a complete hunk. I mean, if you made it this far on my list, you already know by now that I'm a sucker for a guy with big muscles, and ridiculous punching of boulders aside, Chris is just a total beefcake, and I can't help but find him to be super attractive. But as it goes, along with him being physically attractive, he also has a really likable personality. He's a nice and caring man, and naturally, big guys with a heart of gold like I've mentioned earlier are pretty much my weakness. To this day, I think his Resident Evil 5 look is the hottest he has ever looked, and many years later, I still find that design very appealing. And I was pretty bummed that they didn't stick with it, but they did give story context to his change, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, Chris definitely gets my vote for Resident Evil's hottest male character. I've been a fan of the Tekken series ever since I was a kid, with Tekken 3 being my first proper entry into the series, and it's no surprise that I was gonna feature a Tekken guy on this list. Tekken has had some pretty attractive male characters, but something that I came to realize as I got older is that a lot of them don't really have engaging personalities that go outside their stereotype that they're based on. I mean, I know it's a fighting game and story isn't that important, but for this kind of list, because personality also plays a part in how I view attraction alongside physical looks, I just came to realize that some of Tekken's guys are pretty one-dimensional, and some are even low-key kinda toxic. But setting that aside, there have been a few guys in this series who I find quite handsome, and it took me a while to choose who would be my Tekken hunk for this list. I essentially boiled it down to 5 main choices, 3 of whom were Hwoarang, Miguel, and Jin Kazama. And while I find these guys really attractive, I just couldn't get behind some of their personality quirks. Hwoarang is cute, but he's way too hot-headed and impulsive. Miguel is super sexy, but he's too violent and hot-tempered. And Jin Kazama is cute as well, but his brooding attitude is just a bit too much for me to take. In short, their quirks just get in the way of their overall appeal for me, and as I've said before, personality does play a factor alongside looks for me when it comes to attractiveness. I eventually narrowed it down to 2 characters. The first was Tekken's star Lucha Libre wrestler King, because body-wise, he's the closest to the kind of body build that I find most attractive. But what kept him from getting the spot is, well... he speaks in this jaguar voice, and it kinda killed the appeal a little for him. If we got to see him speaking normally, he would have definitely got the spot. So instead, I went with Tekken's token biker man, Paul Phoenix. I know, surprising, right? Anyway, Paul is a funny one because I initially didn't think much of him back during my Tekken 3 and Tekken 2 days. I thought he had a cool design, but that was about it. But then Tekken 4 came out, and we got to see what he looked like with his hair down, and I was instantly smitten. He looked so sexy with his long hair, and looked like such a handsome rocker man, and I just couldn't help but find him to be really attractive. And it was from there that I started looking at him a lot differently. I mean, body-wise, like King, he is more or less in the range of the type of body build that I find attractive, but what helped even more was that despite his overconfidence and ego, he's still a pretty friendly and easygoing guy, and I just find that to be a really attractive combination with both looks and personality in general. I can't deny though that his character really went downhill after Tekken 4, when they started to over-exaggerate his loud and somewhat dim-witted personality traits and turned him into a straight-up comic relief character to annoyingly absurd degrees. But I will always have love for how he originally was in the first 4 Tekken games, where he was a good mix of a serious and determined fighter with a slight goofy and lighthearted side to him. All I know is that I totally wouldn't mind taking a sunset ride with him on his motorcycle, that's for sure. Anyway, because of Paul's biker/rocker aesthetic, and the fact that he's one of the more easygoing guys in the Tekken franchise, he's my choice for a Tekken hunk for this list.
Oh.
Ratchet is probably one of the most adorably handsome guys I have ever seen in a video game, and I found him appealing even back when I was a kid. He is the total definition of adorkable, with his friendly and somewhat nerdy personality. He did start off as a jerkass in the first game, which definitely put me off from him at first, but when he learned not to be so selfish and became more laid back and easygoing in the sequel Going Commando, I couldn't help but find his new attitude and demeanor very attractive. I know that some people really didn't like his starry-eyed, Boy Scoutish personality in the 2016 reboot, and while I too would have preferred they kept his original personality as well, I actually didn't mind this change too much because honestly, I found him too cute to hate. I mean, just look at that face. I mean, how could you possibly hate that face? It's just too cute. All in all, I really liked Ratchet's character, and with his likable personality and handsome anthropomorphic look, he's a total hottie in my book. When it comes to the Final Fantasy series, there is quite a plethora of handsome or appealing male characters, but to be completely honest, there aren't many who completely infatuated me. Zack Fair from Final Fantasy VII was one of the few characters I really crushed on back when I was younger, and while I still have a soft spot for him, there came another guy who I found myself really crushing on, and surprisingly, he came from one of the least popular games in the series. That character is Snow Villers from Final Fantasy XIII. I just can't deny how hot I think Snow is. His nice blonde hair, his stubbled beard, and his sweet blue eyes, and not to mention his tall and somewhat beefy stature. I just can't help but find him to be very attractive. While he's not the most intelligent guy in the franchise, his friendly, positive, and protective demeanor is what really won me over to him. Because he has a good heart, and he really means well to everyone around him. And I just feel like he'd be so nice to spend time and cuddle with. Yeah, I know, I'm very sappy, but I can't help it. I'm a little romantic at heart. His look in Final Fantasy XIII too, where he grew his hair out, looked insanely sexy. Though I slightly prefer his look from the first game. He really rocks the bandana look. All in all, I can't help but find Snow to be one of the hottest guys to ever come out of the Final Fantasy series. And I'm surprised at that, because I initially didn't think much of him back when I first saw him when Final Fantasy 15 came out. But he slowly grew on me, and to me, he is just a total dreamboat. The Dynasty Warrior series is full of hot guys, from the heroic and dashing Zhao Yun, the energetic and spirited Lu Xun, and even the brutish and intimidating Lu Bu has a certain charm to him. But in the end, it came down to both Deng Ai and Wei Yan, and I like them both for different reasons. Deng Ai is just a total beefcake. His big bulging muscles, his tall stature, that nice long dark hair, and I love a big bulky guy who isn't afraid to show a little leg. I would just love to curl up and share a warm cute cuddle with him. But what I like about him other than his physical attributes is his patiently calm demeanor and his intelligence. I mean, the man can write maps. Now that is pretty impressive. Overall, I'm a sucker for muscle-bound gentle giants, and I couldn't help but find Deng Ai to be a strikingly handsome guy. With Wei Yan, like Deng Ai, he totally fits that bulky beefcake look that I tend to like when it comes to guys, and while he's not as intelligent as Deng Ai is, he really does mean well, and he's kind-hearted and protective. And honestly, I kinda find his little speech impediment to be kinda cute. And I just want to shower him with warm affection and nose kisses. Lots and lots of nose kisses. So while Wei Yan is not the most flashiest guy in the Dynasty Warrior series, I still couldn't help but find him to be really attractive. All in all, I adore both of these guys, and they're both total hotties in my book. Like I said before, there are a lot of male video game characters who I find attractive, and this is quite a tough one to make. However, before I reveal my number one video game hunk, here are some honorable mentions. Oh, Zwei. Zwei is pretty much the total package for me. He's big and muscular, he has a darkly inclined macabre sense of style, and he has a likable personality. The moment I saw his debut trailer years ago, I was instantly drawn to him. My original Soul Calibur hunk was a tie between Huang and Yun Sung, but once Zwei joined the series, he instantly captured my attention. Zwei is just one of the hottest guys I've ever seen in a video game, as he has all the qualities I tend to find attractive in a guy. All I can say is that I totally wouldn't mind sharing a sweet, warm embrace with him in the night under the moonlight. To me, Zwei is just a total dreamboat, and for all these reasons, that is why Zwei is my number one hottest male character in video games. And there you have it, guys, those are my top 10 hottest guys in video games. Let me know what you think, and while you're at it, why not share some of your own personal hottest guys in video games, because I'd love to hear them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more gaming goodness. I'm Decadent Gamer, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching.